Hey, what is up, spiritual hooligan? Are you ready to activate some fearless living? This is the last video in my series here, and what I want you to know is that spiritual types often make their lives harder than they need to be, and that's the whole point of this particular series of daily enlightenments on fearless living. We get out of balance. You're really good at being at peace, and then your life disrupts you because you haven't taken the time to implement a prosperity plan. Prosperity doesn't mean money, it doesn't mean wealth, it doesn't mean success. Those are modern interpretations, but at the root of prosperity, it just means you're doing well. So we get out of balance because we're so focused on being in a state of all is well, peace, joy, flow, but you're in peace, joy, and flow, and then your life sucks. That doesn't work. So we're going to work on 8 things that get your life rocking so that you can be at peace and you can have a life that you live well in. This is our 8th daily enlightenment in a row, keys to spiritual living. I want to help you connect with enlightened perspectives, because when you do that, you're on your way to fearless living. My name is Matthew Ferry, and I'm bringing you your daily enlightenment. It's your moment to pause, to slow down, to get connected to enlightened perspectives. I want to help you to quiet your mind and restore your peace. Now, there are 8 keys to fearless living. We've been talking about them now for 8 daily enlightenments in a row, and this is from an enlightened perspective. So this is not from the perspective of survival. Fearless living from the perspective of survival is adrenaline, you're afraid, do it anyways. From an enlightened perspective, it is remove the illusions that create fear in the first place, and then adjust your life so that your life isn't triggering you back into fear. And that's really the big point that we're pushing here in this series of 8 daily enlightenments. So we want to develop your inner knowing, be committed versus attached, create alignment, shift your being, fearless speaking, create structure. Yesterday, we talked about restore integrity, and today we're going to talk about fearless action. I want to talk about fearless action because I want to get you on your path to fearless living. So to be fearless, you got to start by connecting with enlightened perspectives. So it's sort of like this. You need to begin with an enlightened state. All is well. Then you need to look at your life and say, okay, in this enlightened state where I am feeling no fear, where I'm recognizing I'm not important, I'm not valued, I'm infinite, everyone is infinite, I'm going to be born over and over and over again because apparently coming to Earth is super fun and I'm on vacation as a soul, right? I am infinite. Here you are, fearless. But now, boom, over here in the prosperity category, you got to get your life working. Because if you're happy, peaceful, joyous, and your mom is a pain in your butt, guess what? She goes into her normal mode and bam, it knocks you out of your peace. Enlightened prosperity. All is well, doing well. So, you get pulled back into the worry, the doubt, and the fear. And I'm just telling you that you can be a spiritual person feeling totally at peace. But because you didn't do the work in your life will rob you of that peace by creating resistance, creating the illusion, and pulling you back into a survival state. The world is not designed for enlightened perspectives to live. The world is designed for survival perspectives to live. So to maintain your peace, your joy, and your flow, which is really at the heart of an enlightened state of fearless living, you got to shift the world around you. Sorry. Unless you're going to go live in a cave somewhere, you got to shift the world around you. You got to reduce the drag, reduce the fight, reduce the against, reduce the stuff that isn't working. Now to do that, you want to practice taking fearless action. So think about it like this. 1, you can't change your life to be easy, effortless, and enjoyable without taking some kind of action. I'm sorry. You're going to have to take some kind of action. You will change your inner state, but the outer world is a world where you are collaborating, you're interacting, there's structure, there's money, there's finance, there's health, there's relationship, there's all kids and college and all, there's all this stuff, retirement. All that stuff is a collaboration, and you've got to take some kind of action to have that stuff work. Sometimes it includes you having some kind of expertise, or maybe you need to work on developing a skill. Those are actions. Here's an enlightened perspective about taking action, okay? Check this out. The action that you take today is a function of the future that you see for yourself. The action that you take today is a function of the future that you see. So action happens naturally when you are aligned with an optimistic future. And I will say enlightened, fearless action happens naturally. So action also happens naturally when you're scared or angry or mad or upset or frustrated or agitated, right? So you can go into survival action. And if we look around, right, the world has been created out of survival action, and we are blessed to be living in this world. It's so phenomenal. But the world now is a platform. It's already set, settled, safe, ready to go for you, my friend, to start taking some enlightened, fearless action, which means you got to get aligned with optimism. There is great joy in taking massive action when it is aligned with your vision for how to have your life really function and work. It's great joy in that. Now, most of our actions today are functions of inspirations that we had in the past. So like, for example, today we're on number 87 of the Daily Enlightenment, and this was something, 187, this is something that I had like this inspiration to do, and now here we are, we're 187 days into a Daily Enlightenment. So this action that I'm taking today is coming from an inspiration from the past. And this is important for you to start asking yourself about the things that you're engaged in today. Is this still important to me? And if it's not, you don't make it wrong. You just transform it into what the next thing is. What is something that I'm doing right now? So what's some action that I'm taking right now that's a pain in the ass, that I don't like, that doesn't feel good? I want you to consider that that is out of alignment. And if you are experiencing pain in the butt, hard, resistant, negative, uneasy, unsettling, frustrating, really all that's happening is something is out of integrity. Go back and listen or watch the last Daily Enlightenment on integrity. Consider that something's not aligned with your objective for easy, effortless, and enjoyable. Fearless action. It's a function of who you're being. And remember, I talked about who you're being in number 4 in this series. And who you're being is your essential nature. It's your perspective about the situation. It's the context that you're holding. So action can be constructive or it can be destructive. And that's going to be a function of, are you in an enlightened perspective or are you in a survival perspective? Because those two things will produce different kinds of action. Is your action from an idea that something is wrong here or I'm a victim? Or is it from my life works and I'm just doing more things that I enjoy and appreciate? My life already works, but this thing over here is creating a little agitation, so I'm just going to adjust it. I'm going to take some action to have this thing come back into a good place. Fearless action happens when your structures are in alignment with your objectives. Think about that. Fearless action happens when your structures are in alignment with your objectives. You'll probably remember 2 Daily Enlightenments ago, I talked about structure. Really important. That was number 6. I also talked about alignment in number 3. So you can see all these things come together so that you can be at peace, enlightenment, and do well in your world, prosperity. Enlightened prosperity. So fearless action. Another thing that you'll notice about fearless action is that fearless action is really more like running experiments, because in your enlightened state, you're crystal clear, you don't know anything. You're crystal clear that the future is unknown. You're crystal clear that the future is not set. You're crystal clear that all of the things that you think in the past that will reoccur are nothing more than hallucinations you're having, and they're part of the survival mechanism, which is constantly saying, this bad thing happened in the past, so that bad thing's going to happen in the future. You have this totally different way of seeing and operating. In my book, I'll just go find it, there's a unconscious reflex that we talk about, and the unconscious reflex is called forecasting the negative. That's on page 168. Forecasting the negative, when you finally resolve the imbalance in your consciousness that creates this hallucination that you have to look out for the bad things that were in the past and the future, when you resolve that, suddenly you go, you know what? I have a hypothesis about how life can be. So I'm going to run an experiment and see if that experiment happens. You have a hypothesis. That's it. You don't know what it's going to take to have your life work and function. You don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows. You're going to play with it and experiment with it and adjust. And running experiments keeps you in a detached state, committed but unattached. You probably remember I talked about that in number 2 in this particular series, committed but unattached. You don't know the outcome, so you run experiments and you just ride the waves, which is something that I talked about also in the second one in this series. Now, without integrity, there is no fearless action. Because if your integrity is out, meaning something isn't functioning, then you're going to find that you go into a survival state, and your survival state, if you're taking action out of frustration, I promise you're going to do less effective work than if you take action out of inspiration. Do you get that? So the survival frustration comes from something is out. Your integrity is out somewhere. Now, if you're not in fearless action, here's what I want you to do. 1, examine the future that you're present to. 2, be honest about who you're being. 3, examine what you're saying about what is happening. 4, examine the structures that are currently present that are making this action happen. 5, create a new experiment based on today's conditions and the future that you are trying to create. And then 6, create an integrity assessment. In fact, consider just rewatching this entire series of Daily Enlightenments. That'll help a lot, okay? Consider this idea. Your actions are saying what you are valuing or not valuing. Your actions are saying what you're valuing or not valuing. You vote with your time. So how you spend your time is what you're committed to. Here's an example from my own life. A few years back, I had this inspiration that I wanted to do yoga every single day. But I wasn't. And I had many fits and starts of doing yoga every single day. So when I looked at the future, that was the first step, remember? I looked at the future that I was present to. And the future was, it's a pain in the butt. It's uncomfortable. It's hard. Then I looked at who I was being. And who I was being was lazy. I was being affected by the hidden motive to survive, lazy. What was I saying about it? I don't have time. I don't want to get up early. At night, I just want to do whatever I'm doing. I want to, hang out. So then I looked at, well, what are the structures that are currently in place that are essentially blocking me from doing this? And the structures were the iPad. I was sitting in bed playing games. I was sleeping in. I was really working on getting 9 hours of sleep, and I was having too much caffeine. So then I said, all right, well, what's an experiment that I could run? And so I played an experiment called Lower the Bar. Lower the bar until I don't have to even think about it. Lower the bar until it's so low. And so I just kept lowering the bar on my yoga, lowering it, 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 until I lowered it all the way down to it counts if I do 8 minutes of Shavasana. Literally just 8 minutes of laying on the ground, eyes closed, breathing. As long as I did 8 minutes of Shavasana, it counted. I did my yoga. And I will tell you, well, let's just look right now on my streak. All right. So when I did an integrity assessment, what I noticed, that's the last thing, right, is an integrity assessment. I noticed on my integrity assessment that I didn't really have a structure in place. So last night, I started using the Streaks app. So I wanted accountability and I wanted reporting. So I wanted structure, accountability, and reporting. So I do my yoga every night before I get in bed. That's the last thing that I do during the day is I do my yoga. I currently have done 580 days in a row. 580 days in a row. And I will tell you, if you're listening to the podcast, then you can't see this, but my muscles are strong, I'm balanced, I'm leaned out. I mean, just my entire body has transformed. And all I did was get myself into fearless action rather than survival action, rather than fearful action, rather than I'm going to conquer the world. It worked. This works. What I'm talking about works. This is what I work on with my private mastermind group. We do these assessments and we work to adjust our lives so that our lives are actually fulfilling on an enlightened state, because your life will take you out of balance. Your life will stop you, literally, your life will literally stop you from feeling peace. It'll knock you into a survival state. Your peace will be gone. So if you're going to stay here in the world, which I think you are, you're not going to be like our predecessors. Our predecessors had to leave because the world was such a pain in the ass. So if you are going to stay here in the world, you actually have to take on the project of getting your life to function. So my question to you today, it's my final question in the Fearless Living series. What stuck out for you? What do you want to take action on? What do you want to run an experiment with so that you can activate your fearless living? Leave me a comment below. I really want to hear from you. My name is Matthew Ferry, author of Quiet Mind, Epic Life, and I request you watch this video, you listen to this audio all the way through, like this Daily Enlightenment. Like it. That tells these big platforms that this is stuff that other people should be digging. Share this. Comment on it. Share it with the people in your life. Let them know what you're committed to, especially the ones who are committed to the same thing. Get into alignment with them. Subscribe to my channel. I put out a new Daily Enlightenment every day. Come join us over in the Spiritual Hooligans Facebook group. That's a place where we talk about this stuff. I'll put the link down below. Thank you so much for tuning in to this Daily Enlightenment.